Hey, this is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling with Platinum versus AEW Dark. Folks, this was a monster. It set a number of records. One, it was the highest number of an episode, meaning it was episode 56, which stands to reason. It was also the longest episode of AEW Dark to date, 1 hour and 51 minutes and some change. Holy balls. It was also amongst the highest for number of matches. It was at least tied for the lead, and it may be a lead unto itself. I'd have to go back and check at 14. Yes, 14 motherfucking matches. But we're going to go over this, and for those who do not know, if a match is of a non-competitive nature, meaning it is obviously an enhancement, a squash, or a jobber match, if you want to be a dick about it, I assign a 3-check system. 1 check is for the proper person being put over in a way that's memorable and clean. The second is for that person being made to look good. And the 3rd check would be if the enhancement talent themselves really stood out, did an exceptional job, or was made to look good by the person they were putting over. Now, I'm going to have to come up with a system because they're having more and more competitive matches. And so for competitive matches, my thing is an overall system of how effective I thought the match was and how effective a job it did of advancing all parties. And then a 3rd check for was an angle advanced successfully. So both of them are on a 3-check system. It's just for slightly different things, and I'll have to go through at least a bit of an explanation, especially for the competitive matches as we go. First match is indeed a competitive match. It is a 4-way match between Evil Uno, who's one half of the best tag team that the Dark Order usually puts out, Blade of Butcher and Blade, Frankie Kazarian from SCU, and Jungle Boy, Jack Evans, or Jack Perry, excuse me, of the Jurassic Express, excuse me. So they have a big 4-way match. I'm not a guy who usually goes on individual spots. You can certainly watch the matches yourself. I will certainly let you know if I think a match is particularly sensational or whatnot for you to take a look at. Needless to say, these guys do a good job. In a 4-way match like this, you're going to have a lot of spots where 2 guys are basically standing on the floor or selling on the floor while 2 guys do their thing. They have a number of those kind of exchanges. I think everybody is sort of successfully made to look good in one way or another. Jungle Boy gets a pin that kind of, I wouldn't say comes out of nowhere, but certainly not at somebody's expense. He's not hitting a clean finisher, knocking somebody out and covering them. But he does get the win, which leads to a big brouhaha between various factions and things like that, with the Dark Order and Blade sort of having one side of this brawl and their allies, and SCU and Jurassic Express being on another side of a brawl, which I'm sure is going to lead to some kind of conflict betwixt all of these entities at a future date, maybe as soon as Dynamite Tonight, which is their 1st anniversary show. So 3 successful checks here. The match is competitive and well done. It's not a botch fest, that's a check. Jungle Boy is put over successfully, but everybody manages to look good, and an angle of some sort is advanced. So I'm going to give that 3 checks. Does the system make sense now? I hope it does, because we're moving on to what I think is a more traditional AEW Dark Enhancement match between Lee Johnson, who they're very high on, and the commentators do a great deal of work putting him over, and Cesar Bononi against the Lucha Brothers. Lucha Brothers are really good at the give and take of these things. They especially when they're winning, they're very gracious about, like, okay, you can get your shit in on us, basically, because we know we're winning in the end. And they do, with the package pile driver, double stomp on the booty combo. They look very menacing. They're obviously trying to turn them up in the vicious department, and I think that works with Eddie Kingston at ringside for them, in addition to having to try to stand out in a very full tag team division. So I'll give this 3 checks. Lee Johnson does a really good job, but I don't think he does the best enhancement job. And usually whatever people or person or people do the best job as far as being enhancement talent, I usually try to highlight them as well. Number 3, we have a match which I guess I would call competitive between Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon, the once Initiative tag team that is now split up and is attempting to solve this thing of who can get their first win. Their first encounter against one another led to a double countout. This one leads to a double DQ. Aspects of the match that I really liked: Peter Avalon attacking Brandon Cutler in the beginning, them giving a more serious aspect to the Brandon Cutler character, I believe, not having him come out holding that dice, but instead coming out, and he had a little bit of pyro, but then he got jumped. Leva Bates continues to do an exceptional job putting over this notion of, I'm with Peter Avalon, but I don't want them to fight, and I don't want Peter to cheat to obtain this win. They pull all this stuff off really subtly, subtle for pro wrestling anyway, and I see you guys, and I see what you're doing. I'm going to give this thing 3 check marks because we are all dying to see how this thing resolves. And they managed to use Leva in effective ways, and Leva is up for the performance. And the 2 guys just do a really good job. They obviously have a chemistry together, which is why they were a pretty good team, and I think even better enemies, if I'm being honest. Then we get a Sunny Kiss promo. It's one of the things I like about Dark. I like it when they have promos and segments. They strangely did not have a lot of promotion for things like AEW Heels, which they usually do, or future shows coming up. Really strange about that, and this Sunny Kiss promo was no great shakes. It was nothing exceptional, but it was great to hear Sunny Kiss talk. And it was great to see them setting up the match, as it were. And our match number 4, I would call this another it was a foregone conclusion. I knew Matt Sydal was going to win. So we'll just call this, we'll check this off as if it is an enhancement match, though I would certainly not call Sunny Kiss your typical enhancement talent. But it was Sunny Kiss against Matt Sydal. Really good match. I think sometimes Sunny Kiss, the criticism has come down, not so much from me, but from others, that Sunny Kiss quote-unquote can't work, that can hit some flashy-looking spots. Bullshit. And this match with Matt Sydal proves it. And Matt Sydal putting over this thing of... I'm sticking to the ground because I had that botch and it was time for a change. I think it was very effective. The Cobra Clutch crossface, as I call it, I think is a really good looking finisher. Though for some reason the commentators seem to have a problem describing what it is. To me, it's perfectly obvious. It's a Cobra Clutch that's kind of pulls back like a crossface. Anyway, Matt Sydal wins with that in a submission, and I'll give this 3 checks. Match number 5, Aaron Solo, Angel Fashion Mbadu against Dark Order's 3, 4, and 10. The Dark Order excel at AEW Dark, no pun intended, because, again, their guys are always going to get bounced around, but when then they're going to go over, they pull out a bunch of elaborate-looking kind of double team and triple team, in this case, moves. Their finisher was a little suspect. I didn't think it looked... I think it looked visually very great. I don't know about the practicality of them doing it in a truly competitive match where 2 of them pick a guy up as if he's on the cross and the other one just runs through his legs like a dog going through a doggy door, and the guy flips around and lands on his back. But you know what? It's the Dark Order. Do your fucking thing. I'm going to give this 3 check marks. I think Mbadu was really the standout amongst the enhancement guys, but they all did a good job. The Dark Order's put over, all that kind of good stuff. Match number 6. Red Velvet, who's clearly getting the pushy push, comes out there with Brandy, for example. I'm a big fan of Red Velvet, who won Talent of the Week for AEW Dark from me on more than one occasion, and it's great to see that she's on the road to Signsville. Makes me happy. Against Elena Black, who many people told me I would want to keep an eye on because I have a particular affinity for female talent, having trained many really good women wrestlers myself, and I am of the mind that the training of women has gone down, and but Elena Black lives up to advanced billing, and she's very attractive, and she wrestles very effectively. I would put her in a tie for performance enhancement talent of the week. Keep an eye on Elena Black. But Red Velvet wins. I like the finisher that she used, basically what you'd call a Yakuza kick or a Claymore kick, but she did it with the person kind of, with Elena Black kind of hunched over and sideways, and I thought that kick to the side of the head looked very effective. Elena Black found a cool way to just sell it dead, and then Red Velvet pinned her. Good stuff. Brandy at commentary, I thought was effective enough. Obviously, she's there to freaking sound the alarm for Red Velvet. That worked well enough for me, and it certainly worked for AEW Dark. 3 check marks out of 3. Number 7, match Fuego del Sol versus Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks went from one of the guys that I least liked watching on Dark because I thought he didn't do the give and take, and I understood he was there to put himself over and make sure that they knew that they were getting someone who's a star. I got that, but ever since then, he's become one of my favorites on AEW Dark, and I think works with the enhancement talent incredibly effectively and makes them look good. This is no exception. Rochambeau finisher, I think, really works for him, especially with Taz there to help put it all over. 3 check marks, and we're moving on. We got a promo with Christopher Daniels, and Scorpio Sky back there with Alex Marvez. But they get to say nary a word before Sean Spears interrupts, and they're setting up something between Sean Spears and Scorpio Sky, and I am all here for it. That is an exciting, great sort of mid-card matchup that can really spice up a card and make it great. And if that sounds like an insult, it's not. A card needs all 3 parts, and they should all be great when you're running hot. Match number 8. We got Ryzen, who I'm a big fan of, and Max with 2 X's. Holy shit, early 2000s, manifesting its ugly head in the indies. Max with 2 X's, Stardom versus Billy and Austin. These matches always work effectively, and I think it's great that Billy and Austin switch between who gets the hot tag, who takes heat. In this case, it's Billy who gets the hot tag, but in a change from the last few weeks, Austin gets the pin with that quick draw finisher, which, okay, I'm warming up to. It's a hip toss into like kind of a neck breaker thing, which at first I despised, and then they started to win me over, and he does it better and better every time, and much credit to Max Stardom for taking the finisher effectively, and Billy and Austin get the win. You need teams like Billy and Austin in a very extensive and prolific tag team division. You need guys at all levels. I don't know why wrestling fans don't seem to understand this, but AEW clearly does. And so 3 check marks all around and good stuff. Number 9, this match, very interesting to me. Nick Komoroto, who I hope we're going to see again and again. I think he's a perfect kind of new enhancement talent. Kind of fits that Will Hobbs role. Now that Will Hobbs has gotten the push and he's clearly off of AEW Dark unless he's winning, we got a bigger guy who's sort of more imposing looking, and it's a good contrast to Darby Allin, who's very small but very effective. And again, Darby Allin is so good at working these matches against bigger opponents. He's lightning quick, and that coffin drop finisher I think is very effective and very babyface. It's just something about looking forward to the coffin motherfucking drop. If you don't know what that is in reference to, you got to get in the know. But Darby Allin with a coffin drop to the back gets the win. Then, holy shit, Darby goes out there, and him and Ricky Starks, who was at commentary with Taz and Excalibur, sorry I didn't say that before, they brawl, and it's great. We get a Kylan King promo, which is awesome, because Kylan King, one of my faves, I really like her, and Kylan King gives a great promo about how Nyla jumped her during somebody else's match, during Jericho's tag match and all this kind of stuff, and she's going to get revenge on her. I don't think it's going to happen, but I love the fact that Kylan King is calling Nyla Rose out and not backing down, even if it is an enhancement match. I think this thing lends itself towards realism, credibility. I like it. I like what AEW Dark does. I just like it. That's why I watch this shit, even though it's so long and it's so many enhancement matches. I still think it's an incredibly effective thing, not only for AEW, but for pro wrestling in general. And it's one of those things that attaches them to the wrestling world at large, as opposed to WWE, which seems decidedly more and more insular to their detriment. 10th match, I don't know if I can call this an enhancement match either, though technically it is, because I know Colt Cabana is going to win, but Griff Garrison is one of these guys that seems like a regular part of the roster more and more. So I'll grade it as if it's Not an enhancement match. Out of respect to Gold, Griff Garrison, who looks great here. An aspect of Griff Garrison's game that used to be not as strong is very strong, which is punches. Now, his forearms are still amongst the best anywhere, but at one point he was exchanging blows with Colt Cabana and threw more punches than forearms, and they looked good. And Griff Garrison looks great here. Colt Cabana is always great working with anybody. And that Billy Goat's Curse submission finisher, I think, kind of lends itself more towards somewhat a part of the Dark Order, and I like it. And it's good stuff. Griff Garrison, Colt Cabana. Colt Cabana looks great. That's a check. Griff Garrison looks really good in a competitive match. That's another check. And stuff is advanced, albeit subtly. Now, not necessarily between Griff Garrison and the Dark Order, but this notion of Colt Cabana with the Dark Order nearby. They're able to talk about angles and discussions, and Colt Cabana. Things are advanced. It doesn't always have to be like, we're going to have a return match. Sometimes things can be advanced just by advancing the angles that are currently underway, and Colt Cabana and how close or not he is to the Dark Order is a running thing that they touched on here. So 3 check marks. Match number 11. We're almost there, folks. Kylan King against Nyla Rose. Kylan King looks really great in defeat here. 3 check marks. Kylan King wins or is tied along with Elena Black for Enhancement Talents of the Week. And how cool is it that AEW is enough of a women's division, especially at the lower level, that we can do that. And 2 women can win Enhancement Talents of the Week. I think it's fucking awesome. Now we just got to get the top of that women's division to catch up with everything. And it's a good time to do it because WWE Raw that went from having perhaps the best, amongst the best women's divisions of all time not that long ago. It's Charlotte, Asuka, Kairi Sane, Sasha, Bayley, Shayna Baszler. I mean, you had all this great talent, and now it feels like it's, Asuka trying to hold up a shitty division with Shayna Baszler in a tag team angle that's kind of going nowhere. And a bunch of scrubs. I mean, so this is, if AEW is going to make a move on this women's division, instead of, I saw where Britt Baker complained, and she's like, the women's segments are the lowest rated and people need to watch them if they want the division to get better. Yeah, but I think it's one of those where the division has to get better. It has to it has to meet us 90% of the way. And people will follow, and Britt Baker is one of those that is a standout. And Hikaru Shida, I think, is really great, but different things have exposed it. And let's face it, they just haven't been showing women's wrestling on Dynamite. And you gotta make us care. You gotta really enhance that division. But on Dark, oh my God, you have enhancement talent that I think is really great in Red Velvet, who's now being sort of promoted, obviously, and Kylan King, who I think is a great acquisition. But Elena Black, but there's also other things like where the fuck is Abaddon? Like that's a lot of time to invest, and a lot of people losing to Abaddon without. I would be curious. If somebody knows, please tell me what the fuck is up with Abaddon. In any case, Nyla Rose wins here with the Beast Bomb. Kylan King just makes people look great. Vicky cuts a promo, which I honestly think isn't all that effective. It's not that good. It's not that crisp. Vicky doesn't get a lot of practice in. But the notion of Nyla Rose is not going to rest. I mean, until Nyla Rose gets a guarantee of a title match with Shida, we're not going to wrestle again in a conventional match. If the idea was Nyla Rose is just going to be kicking people's ass, that didn't come across, even though I think that was the point of the promo. So I'd say the promo was not very effective, but the match most certainly was. 3 check marks. Match number 12, Joey Janela against D3, who does a really good job, and Joey Janela needed to be put over and won with a very vicious-looking brain buster. 3 check marks all around. D3 almost up for that talent of the week. Match number 13, Elijah Dean, who had a good look, against Wardlow. And Wardlow, that fall, where people fall into his knee, it has never looked better. 3 check marks, mostly because Elijah Dean just did such an effective job of making Wardlow look like an absolute fucking monster. That's the way it's supposed to be booked. That's the way it's supposed to look. Good stuff. And match number 14, I'm surprised it's not really a competitive match at all, but it's Eddie Kingston against Baron Black. What can I say? That back fist from Eddie Kingston has never looked better. Only Eddie Kingston, who's been in this thing 19, 20 years, would continue to improve match to match. Fucking love Eddie Kingston. Bit of a disappointment for me and people I was watching with that Eddie Kingston didn't cut a promo afterwards, but I also get it. We're getting the notion that his back fist was brutal, and then he wins with a different submission hold. Last time he did a Kimura that I saw. This time just a front chancery, but he lifted the guy up, looked like he was breaking his neck and ripping his head off, and he wins by submission. So a very good episode of AEW Dark. And then we get a promotion for, of course, the first anniversary Dynamite show happening. Moxley versus Archer, FTR against Best Friends, both of those for their respective titles. Miro and Kip Sabian are going to do something. I hope so, because that thing has fucking been shit since Miro got there. I love AEW, but I can't pretend the Miro stuff hasn't been absolutely awful. And then Cody defending his newly re-won TNT title against Orange Cassidy. Anyway, we got through it in just about 21 minutes, which is a miracle, considering I tried to do a thorough job, and this show was an hour and 51 minutes long and 14 matches. But I thank you for joining me. This is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling, with Platinum versus AEW Dark.